Hi everyone, welcome to this plant-based episode about healthy fats. I'm Esther Garfin, the founder of Alternative Food Network, and guests Ashley Kitchens and Faye Knights are back. If you haven't heard my previous discussions with Faye and Ashley, check out our other plant-based episodes on alternativefoodnetwork.com or wherever you listen to podcasts under Alternative Food Network. So a little bit about Ashley. After healing herself of her own lifelong GI issues through food, Ashley became a plant-based registered dietitian nutritionist. She helps clients all around the world eat sustainable, plant-centered diets. She earned her Master's of Public Health and Nutrition from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Faye Knights is a communications specialist and works as a communications manager in the Canadian not-for-profit health field. Faye also has an everlasting love of healthy food. Her healthy food and nutrition passions recently led her to obtain certification as a culinary nutrition expert. Faye's interests range from exploring local markets, healthy baking, food photography, yoga, and writing for her blog. Her healthy food and living motto is keep it real, keep it simple. Hi, Faye and Ashley, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. So today we are talking about fats. Perhaps not such a sexy topic, but an important one nonetheless. So there are healthier fats, and then there are other kinds of fats. So Ashley, I was wondering if you could delve in a little bit into that concept and explain to our audience the difference between fats.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think it's funny that you said that because it's a very necessary topic because fat is a very essential part of our diet. So there's basically 4 types of fats. You can kind of look at it as 2 categories in a way. There's saturated and trans fats, and these fats it's easy to sort of remember them as like they're typically a solid at room temperature. So if you think of like a stick of butter or coconut oil, those typically are saturated or trans fats. And then when you think of monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, those tend to be liquid at room temperature, like vegetable or seed-based type oils. So that's kind of an easy way to remember those types of fats. So saturated fat, it comes with a lot of conflicting viewpoints. But one of these viewpoints, and it comes from the American Heart Association, just says that saturated fat raises your cholesterol in your blood. So it's something to reduce in your diet. And these types of fats you can often find in like beef or pork, lamb, chicken, like high fat dairy foods, or even like tropical oils like coconut oil, for example. So those are saturated fats. And then trans fats, I like to call these like man-made fats because they go through this process called hydrogenation. So when you're looking at a food label and something says, hydrogenated oils or partially hydrogenated oil, you can assume that there's some trans fat in there. And these oils are basically converted from like a liquid to like a semi-solid. And this basically serves its purpose in that it's helping prolong the shelf life of a lot of products. So those are those 2 types of fats. And then when you look at monounsaturated fat and polyunsaturated fat, monounsaturated fat, it comes with a number of health benefits according to the research, and one of which is like to protect the heart, reducing like the risk of heart disease and inflammation. And so those types of fats, I know we'll probably talk about this more, found in things like avocado and olives and some nuts. And then polyunsaturated fats, those are like your omega-3s, your omega-6s, and these have been shown to like help reduce your LDL, or that quote bad cholesterol that the doctor tells you about, and this can potentially help lower your risk of heart disease and stroke.
Did you say that coconut oil is not a good fat?
So coconut oil contains a lot of saturated fat, and if you have like a jar of coconut oil, sitting in your pantry, oftentimes it is a solid. So coconut oil it's one of those rare plant like derived foods that contains a lot of saturated fat.
Oh. Faye, correct me if I'm wrong. And when we did our podcast, the first episode about plant-based foods, we were talking about shakes. And I thought you had mentioned that you put in coconut. Was it not coconut oil in your shakes as a source of fat? Am I
Definitely. So I'm a lover of coconut cream. I absolutely love coconut cream. And there's a little bit of a rule of thumb I use when I'm making smoothies, which is fat, fiber, and protein. The combination of those three I find makes a balanced smoothie. And the fat source that I typically lean towards is coconut cream. And so I don't necessarily load my entire smoothie up with coconut cream, but I do put in a dollop or two, and I feel that it helps balance out any of the fruits that I'm going to be adding, because most fruit contains sugar, especially bananas, and you want to help stabilize your blood sugar levels. And when you add in some fat, like coconut cream or nut butter, it helps keep your blood sugar at bay.
So, Ashley, since you're a dietitian, what would you say to Faye about the coconut cream? And then we can go into this discussion about, well, what are some examples of plant-based foods that have healthy fats, right? Can she use something else?
I mean, I will say, Faye, I'm also a fan of like coconut milk and coconut cream, and I do use it as well. And if you think about like a predominantly plant-based diet, it's actually pretty devoid in saturated fats because we're not eating a lot of like kind of the foods that I mentioned, like red meats and chicken and high-fat dairy foods. So having some coconut oil in your diet here and there, and like Faye said, she just uses like a dollop or two in her smoothies. There isn't really a need for concern. It's when people are dumping a whole can in their smoothie where it could be a little problematic, day in and day out.
Got it. Okay. And what are some other examples of plant foods with healthy fat?
I find that there's so many tasty plant-based options that have tons of good fats in them. Some of my favorite are hemp hearts. I absolutely love hemp hearts. They're nut-free, and so even though they have a little bit of a nutty taste and texture to them, if somebody has a nut allergy and wants to use them to top on their salad, or they want to incorporate them into a smoothie, it's a great nut-free option. And they also are so versatile. So you can either sprinkle them with seasoning and toast them, and then it brings out their great flavor, or you could top them on a salad as is, and you barely taste them. So I find that they're really great. They're adaptable, and they work well with tons of recipes. And then, of course, any kind of nut butter I enjoy as well. How about you, Ashley?
Yeah, I actually really like that because a lot of these healthier fats are found in nuts. And so it's nice to have this seed alternative, like you said, like having hemp hearts or like chia seeds, where you can still have sort of that like maybe taste of, especially with like the hemp hearts like you were talking about, of nuts, without having to consume nuts if you're allergic or have an intolerance. So hemp hearts are definitely one of my favorites. I have it on my oatmeal every single morning. I love those. I also love avocado. That's something that I incorporate into my diet a lot, especially in the evenings. I tend to make like dishes where avocado fits like really perfectly, whether it's like a sort of like a Mexican inspired quinoa bowl or like tacos or something like that. I love having some avocado with it.
I absolutely love avocado as well. And most recently, I started buying frozen avocado, and I didn't know what to think of it at first because I figured, like, what am I going to do with frozen avocado? If it thaws out, it's not going to taste that great. But I started incorporating it into a chocolate smoothie. So I add raw cacao, 2 pieces of frozen avocado, any kind of nut milk, some cinnamon, and Himalayan salt. And it tastes absolutely amazing. It almost tastes like a liquid chocolate pudding.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Faye, you're blowing my mind because I had no idea frozen avocado existed. So I'm going to have to scour the grocery stores down here.
It's amazing. I saw it for the first time at a local store, and they had it kind of in a bulk section in a big bag. I think it was around $15 or so. And I'm sure it has at least 10 or 12 frozen chopped up avocados. But it's awesome because then you don't have to wait for them to ripen, and you don't have to use an entire avocado, because I find that's also a bit much too. I kind of prefer eating half of an avocado. And so it's perfect. So I just take out 2 chunks, add them into my smoothie, and then it whips up so nicely.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's awesome. I hope that they have those down here. I feel like every time we're on a podcast together, I learn something new from you. So I'm writing this down, and I'm just
likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise.
And just to clarify, Faye, you're in Canada, Ashley's in the US. 15 Canadian dollars is about what in US dollars? Here, Will is
Yeah,
checking
about
it out.
about $20 or so.
No, it's the other way.
Is it? $12.
$11 today at today's rates. It's $11.36.
Nice. So you'll get more avocados for your dollar there.
Perfect. Sweet. I can't wait.
So, Ashley, can you talk a little bit about why we need fat? Why do our bodies need it?
Yeah, that's a good question because I feel like, and kind of like what you mentioned earlier, fat kind of gets just a bad rap, but it really is a nutrient. Like, we have to have it in our diet because it's really essential. Like, believe it or not, it kind of gives our body some energy. It helps protect our organs. So we have fat that not just like externally, but is more internally that we can't like palpate. And it helps protect our organs. It helps our body absorb different nutrients. So it can really help absorb like different fat soluble vitamins. And then it's important like with just hormone production. So like really without fat, hormone production would really suffer. So it's involved in so many processes throughout our body that it truly is an essential nutrient.
How much fat should someone have on a daily basis?
So the standard recommendation, and this comes from the Dietary Reference Intake, which is the DRI, is about 20 to 35% of our total calories is coming from fat. Now that's like for like a very standard person who, doesn't have like any like irregular stools or hasn't had their gallbladder removed or doesn't have any malabsorption issues. That's like sort of the standard recommendation.
And even though we're talking about healthy fats, I'm sure people are wondering, what does that do to the waistline?
Yeah, no, I actually do think it's a good question, and kind of like what Faye was alluding to with her smoothie, like including some fats into your diet, into your meals, like it's part of a healthy, diverse diet, and two, like it helps you feel satisfied. So maybe not necessarily to promote weight loss, but it can help you leave a meal feeling satiated and keep you feeling fuller for a little bit longer. And that again is just making sure like it's included in part of like a very diverse a meal or diet.
It's a great energy source, and I see it as an energy source. So I think it's important for everybody to incorporate fat into their diet. It's just being aware of the types of fats, the quality of the fats, and the amount. And especially, I'm not sure if we'll tap into this later, but the types of cooking fats as well, making sure that they are using fats that are appropriate for the temperature that they're cooking in so that they don't burn and they don't ruin their nutritional value.
Okay, let's talk about cooking fats then, because I know there's a whole bunch, and I would love to know what you think about all the variations and what we should be using when we cook.
Definitely. So I love to cook with plant-based fats, and I think something that a lot of people are not aware of is that different types of plant-based fats have different cooking points. And so, for example, there's a common use of olive oil, in particular in Mediterranean diets. People love cooking with olive oil, but what a lot of people don't know, and I was guilty of this as well, is that olive oil doesn't actually have a super high cooking temperature. So basically, at anything over 375, olive oil starts to burn. And when you have oils that are burning, it actually causes a really dysfunctional oxidative process, and it's not, from that point on, it's not actually healthy to consume. So you want to be really cognizant of the temperature that you're cooking any kind of oil at. And so, for example, Ashley had mentioned the different types of oils before, the 4 different categories, and it's really easy to do a simple Google search and type in, depending on what oil category you're using, what temperature it should be used at. And so, for example, if you were to type in a burning point of olive oil, it'll identify for you between 375 Fahrenheit to 400 Fahrenheit max. Anything above that will burn. So, for example, you don't want to use olive oil when you're broiling, because broiling is between 450 Fahrenheit to 500, and that will actually burn your food, and you wouldn't want to consume that burnt oil. Coconut oil, because it's a saturated fat, has a higher burning temperature, so you're able to use that at 400 and 425. It's safe, it won't burn. And then, so each oil has its own burning temperature. And so you really want to familiarize yourself with that before you start cooking with oils.
But for, let's say, a salad dressing, olive oil would be great, right?
Definitely. Raw plant-based oils are the best way to consume oils. But of course, we love to cook. We love to use oils in so many various ways. And it's just really great to be able to have that knowledge while you're cooking so that you make sure that the oil that you're adding to your food is benefiting you and not harming you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Because I remember when I was first on my own and started doing a lot of my own cooking, I would be sauteing things and you could tell the pan would start smoking. Well, then the food would have this kind of weird, bitter, sort of rancid taste. Something would be off. And I didn't even know about smoke points until I basically went to school and had to learn all about it. But it was very interesting. And I think that's a really good point to make sure, whatever oils you're using, that you're kind of checking what the smoke point is. That way, you can feel really confident that you're not burning your oil or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Typically, the rule of thumb, from what I've observed and from what I've learned, is the more solid the fat, the higher the burning or smoke point. Mm-hmm. So, for example, butter, lard, coconut oil, those have higher burning points because they're solid at room temperature. But once oils start to become thinner in consistency, they typically have a lower burning point. That's kind of just the rule of thumb that I've familiarized myself with.
And what about for baking? I had read that avocado oil is a good replacement for baking. Do you think that's correct?
Yeah, avocado oil is great because it has a high burning point, and typically when you bake, you're baking at 350 or 375. And so it is quite safe. It's even safe for sauteing as well. I use it all the time for stir fries and stovetop meals. So avocado oil is a great option. I do a lot of water sauteing so I've tried to switch over all of my pans to ceramic. And ceramic works really well with water sauteing. It's amazing.
It does. I've actually heard that. I had a client who mentioned the same thing, that she loves water sauteing in her ceramic pots and pans, because I don't know why, but she just said it's so much better than the other pans that she used to use, where she often would use oil, especially in the ones that are they stick.
I recently bought one. It's like magic. You don't put oil at all. It's just you make whatever you're making and it just slides off.
Yeah. Do you find that the cooking temperatures are different though? I find that ceramic gets hot very quickly.
Well, the instructions for you said not to cook it on a high flame, so you do it low to medium, not high. So that's probably
I learned that the hard way. I was doing sweet potatoes one day with onions, and the onions just burnt within a minute. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not doing that again. So from then on, I put it at medium, and I that was the highest I set it at.
Do you guys have any favorite recipes using healthy plant-based fats?
I have a cashew cheese sauce that I love, that I either put over chickpea pasta, or if I'm making nachos for a bunch of friends, I include it there. So I can share that one with you.
Awesome. Yeah, I love using healthy fats in all of my recipes. In particular, there's one that I have on the blog called Healthy Whipping Cream. And basically the star of the show is coconut cream. But it's a really great alternative to cupcake frostings that are super loaded with sugar. And so I'll definitely be sharing that one. And there's a few other new recipes that I'm currently working on. There's one that's going to be called Cookie Dough Energy Bites, and that's going to be focusing on cashew butter and almond flour, and coconut oil. So there'll be lots of good fats in that. But yeah, I'm always constantly using good fats in all of my recipes. I would say it's in almost everything that I make. So definitely keep checking out the blog and you will find what you're looking for.
Okay. And speaking of your blog, what is it and how can people find you?
Yeah, definitely. So my blog is wellnessfirst.net, and that is spelled WELLNESS, the number one ST.net. And my Instagram handle is the same. So you could find me on Instagram at wellnessfirst_net.
And Ashley, if someone wants to get in touch with you, how should they do that?
Yeah, you can find me on my Instagram, which is Plant Centered Prep. That's spelled PLANTCENTERED PREP. And my website is called the same as well, plantcenteredprep.com. So head on over there and we can chit chat.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks to you both again for being on the podcast today. It was a very interesting discussion. And for our audience, if you want to find some of the recipes that Ashley and Faye are going to so graciously share with us, you can go to alternativefoodnetwork.com and find them there. Until next time, thanks again for listening. All content provided or opinions expressed in this podcast are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for professional medical advice. Please seek advice from your doctor or other qualified healthcare practitioner.